welcome to the July 7th meeting of the Zoning Board of Adjustments and Appeals. First order of business is roll call. Ms. Mayweather? Here. Ms. Schaefer?
Here.
Mr. Rashke?
Here.
Mr. Culberson?
Here.
Mr. Kent?
Here.
And Mr. Pedersen?
Here.
And Ms. Konishi here. Next up, we have the meeting minutes from the June 1st meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Ms. Mayweather? Approved. Ms. Schaefer?
Approved.
Mr. Rashke?
Yes.
Mr. Culberson?
Yes.
Mr. Kent?
Yes.
Mr. Pedersen?
Yes.
And Ms. Konishi approved. Next, I turn over to our city attorney.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Adjustments and Appeals. This is the board comprised of members from our community that are volunteer. They're appointed by our city commission. They are not members of or employees of the city, but in fact here to listen to requests and grant requests for variances where literal enforcement of the city's land development code would create an undue burden or unnecessary hardship, and granting that request would not be contrary to public interest. The way the procedures will work today, each applicant will be called forward. If you could state your name and give your address for the record, as well as just provide a brief summary of what you are requesting. The board will have an opportunity then to ask any questions. City staff will also be able to present any information that they are seeking to present. And if there are any members from the audience that we wish to speak for or against a particular variance, you'll have an opportunity to do so as well. I would ask, if you're planning to speak before the board today, I'll need to go ahead and swear you in. So if you could stand at this time and raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. Turn it back over to our chair.
Thank you. So first on our list is Connor Home Improvements. The request is for a 7-foot variance to allow a rear yard setback of 8 feet in lieu of the 15-foot minimum setback specified by the PUD zoning for Sandpiper Golf and Country Club, Ordinance 3563, as amended to allow for the replacement of an existing screen room with a new hard roof sunroom on property located at 1020 Canary Circle North.
If you could just go ahead and have a seat, only because the microphone won't pick you up if you're standing up.
Excuse
Thank
me,
you.
I think before we get started, we do need to appoint new officers. Looks like item number 5 here. I guess we skipped it.
Did I miss it?
Yeah.
I apologize.
Could we do that at the end of the meeting instead?
No, we did it before. I guess they expired last month, and
Okay.
we need to have a new chair and vice chair and secretary. And all that.
Okay, my apologies. So we have new business, appointment of board officers.
Okay, so generally this would be when we open the floor, anyone who would be interested in serving for any of the positions for the following year.
Anyone have a motion or suggestion?
I am not interested. So. Since I'm new to the board, I'd rather sit another year and learn more.
I think Ms. Konichi would be a good board chair.
I second that. I think she's great.
Okay. I don't have any objections. And I make a motion for Mr. Culberson to continue being the co-chair.
Thank you very much.
Approved.
All right.
We need to probably vote on
Okay.
those. So
Ms.
if anyone
Mayweather?
has a motion for the chair, if that's the where you want to start,
Okay.
and then a second.
Yes. So for the chair, Ms. Mayweather,
Second.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer, Mr. Culberson.
Yes.
Mr. Kent.
Yes.
And Mr. Patterson.
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Konishi, yes.
And then
And then the co-chair, Ms. Mayweather, is for Mr. Culberson to be co-chair. Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Rashke.
Yes.
Mr. Culberson,
Yes.
Mr. Kent, and
Yes.
Mr. Patterson.
Yes.
And Ms. Konishi, yes. Thank you. All right. Back to you, sir.
Okay. You want my name?
Yes, please. State
My
your name and
address?
your address, and then give us,
I'm
tell us.
representative for Connor Home Improvement. My
Okay.
name is Jim Franks, and I live at 1516 Glendale,
Thank you.
Lakeland.
And can you tell us a little bit about your request?
Well, for some reason, there's different setbacks. There's an existing screen room that's already there because it has a screen roof, which meets the existing setback, and it was built and permitted years ago. Obviously, it's a retirement community, and she's elderly, so it constantly rains. The room is of no use, and she's always having to clean the flooded water, blah, blah, blah. So we would like to put a hard roof on that. And the setbacks for a hard roof are different than for a screen room. For some reason, I mean, the room's already there. We're just gonna take the screen roof off and put a hard roof on if we can pass a variance.
Understood, thank you. Are there any comments from the audience? I'll turn it over to the city.
Hi, good morning. For the record, Joshua Cheney with Community Economic Development. This is an interior lot. It is within the Sandpiper subdivision. It has PUD zoning, and it's also located in the suburban neighborhood context district. The purpose of this request is to obtain variance relief, which will allow for the construction of a new sunroom, which will have a solid roof and acrylic windows as an addition on the rear side of the house. So here we are looking at the rear, and you can see the existing screen room, which the applicant just referred to, and I'll show you a few more pictures of that. So as he indicated, it does meet the setback requirements for a screen room. However, when you add a hard roof, it does have to meet the principal structure setbacks. So that is the reason why they are in need of the variance. Excuse me. So this too is the reason why a number of these requests have come before you over the past few years, not just for screen rooms, but primarily for, well, not primarily, but for a number of sunrooms as well, because again, the difference being the setbacks are much greater for something with a hard roof, because at that point it becomes an addition rather than an accessory structure. So here's another shot of that. This was the site plan that was provided by the applicant. So measured from the nearest point, the existing single-family home is located approximately 18 feet from the rear property line. And the existing screen room is just over 8 feet, as close as 8 feet, I should say. And again, just to reiterate, it's going in the same location. They're just going to be putting a hard roof on it to replace the screen roof so that it provides a lot more use for the property owner. The applicant has provided documentation from the Sandpiper Golf and Country Club Architectural Review Committee. They did vote in support of this request on January 21st, 2021. And I would also like to note that I have not received any phone calls or emails or questions, certainly not anyone indicating that they don't support the request, but no communications at all. So with that, the hardship suffered is not the result of the action taken by the applicant. The amount of relief requested is the minimal amount necessary to accommodate the proposed screen room enclosure. And due to a lack of viable alternatives and the minimal impact on the adjacent properties, staff recommends that this request be considered for approval. And with that, I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
Motion to approve?
We have any comments from the public?
I asked to see if there were anybody, yeah, there were no comments. All right, we'll put it to the vote. Ms. Mayweather? Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Rashke?
Yes.
Mr. Culberson?
Yes.
Mr. Kent?
Yes.
Mr. Patterson?
Yes.
And Ms. Konishi, yes. So it's been approved. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.
Next up, we have a request for 2500 Kathleen Road. This request is in 3 parts. The first request is for a 24-foot variance to allow a maximum building height of 60 feet in lieu of the maximum height of 36 feet specified by Table 3.4-6 of the Land Development Code. The second is a 107-foot variance to allow a front setback of 182 feet in lieu of the 75-foot maximum setback specified by Table 3.4-6 of the Land Development Code. And number 3 is relief from the 30% minimum frontage build-out specified by Table 3.4-6 of the Land Development Code to allow for the development of two 75,000 square foot medical office buildings with a maximum height of 3 stories on the property located at 2500 Kathleen Road. Hi there. Can you give us your name and your address?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. For the record, my name is Shelton Rice. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Peterson and Myers, address 225 East Lemon Street, Lakeland, Florida. Today I'm here on behalf of Lakeland Regional. I have with me in attendance today Mr. Patrick Phillips from Lakeland Regional, Lenny Arnold, who's the chief engineer involved in the project at Chastain Skillman, Mark Maturo from Gresham Smith, and Zach Mayaker from Stantec. I'd like to begin with first commending Mr. Scarce. He has done an excellent job analyzing this request in his staff report. We've reviewed that. We concur with his position. Just to briefly reiterate the request and describe that for you, the property that we're dealing with is at the intersection of Kathleen Road and I-4. So this is the northwest corner of that intersection, if you're familiar with that area. It's currently a vacant wooded lot. It's 22 acres. It's irregularly shaped. It's bordered by a railroad on its western boundary, the I-4 entrance ramp on the southern and eastern boundary, Kathleen Road on its northeastern boundary, and it has a convenience store bordering it really on the northwestern boundary. The property's got a gas pipeline that bifurcates the property, which makes development of the site even more complicated and difficult than it otherwise would be. And so that, in conjunction with a number of other reasons, necessitate our request for these 3 variances. Looking at the three requests specifically, we're proposing a building height variance to allow a maximum height of 60 feet for the building. The standard is currently 36 feet in the zoning district. The topography, the irregular shape, and the pipeline, once again, support and substantiate why this request is necessary. The proposed use of the site is for a medical office. And so they're anticipating constructing two to 3 story medical office buildings totaling 150,000 square feet. Because of the structure of the buildings, the locations, the orientation with I-4, and the visibility, we're proposing that we have this taller building which would have a higher visibility and would better serve as a gateway to the city of Lakeland from I-4. So this would increase visibility from I-4 and is appropriate given the limited access on the northeastern side and the proximity to the surrounding properties. Previously, another point is within the 03 zoning district, which is not the applicable zoning district for this property, but that is more similarly associated with the type of medical office that we're proposing. That allows a maximum building height of 60 feet. And so that's more, that shows there's consistency with what we're asking for. The current zoning is C2, and there's a future land use designation of IAC, which deals with higher intensity type developments at major interchanges, which we're dealing with here. Previously, there was a conditional use approval on the property to allow the construction of a hotel, and that hotel had a maximum height of 65 feet. When you analyze the aerial of the property and you look at the surrounding properties and uses in conjunction with the topography, there is no negative impact associated with this increase in building height that we're asking from the 36 maximum to 60 feet. So that summarizes the first component of the request. The second component is to allow a maximum setback of 182 feet as opposed to the standard of 75 feet. And so when we talk about setbacks, generally we're talking minimum setbacks, and that's the distance from the right-of-way to a principal structure on a site. That typically, and from my perspective, deals with safety. You don't want buildings too close to right-of-way. What we're dealing with here is a maximum setback. So that means we can't have buildings too far away from the right-of-way. The primary justification for maximum setbacks and the reason for them is because you want to encourage pedestrian connectivity. You want people generally walking in this area. So this specific zoning category has a maximum setback of 75 feet. In light of the unique characteristics of the property that we've already mentioned, we're requesting a reprieve from that 75-foot maximum setback to set the buildings farther away from the right-of-way. So this is to set them 182 feet back. This area, if you're familiar with it, along I-4 and Kathleen Road, is not an area that is conducive to pedestrian access and walking. It does have some sidewalks, but there really aren't any residents. I pulled up an aerial this morning and did some measurements. The closest residents, if they followed the traffic laws and walked along the sidewalks at the traffic signals, is over 1/3 of a mile away. And then when you think about it from a practical perspective, a medical office type use, generally those aren't the type of patients that would be walking a significant distance to utilize this property. So all of that being said, this is more of a vehicular accessed and oriented type use that we don't believe the maximum setback of 75 feet would be appropriate for. And then getting into the third component, the frontage build out, that once again gets to that pedestrian connectivity, wanting to have a certain amount of building frontage along Kathleen Road. You can see this piece is a little bit oblong along Kathleen Road. It has a significant distance of frontage along Kathleen. This maximum building build out is problematic with that, and certainly is oriented to allow more pedestrian access, which for the reasons I previously stated isn't conducive for this site or this request. We've analyzed the criteria for granting variances in chapter 12.3.2.1 related to this board and how those should be considered and the hardships. And we concur with staff's position that this request is consistent with the Land Development Code and the criteria that this board should consider when analyzing these types of requests. So having said that, we respectfully request a favorable vote. If you have any specific questions of us regarding the project, we'll be glad to answer them, and we certainly have our team here that will assist in that if there's something that I can't answer specifically for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the audience? Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Can I ask just for clarification?
Sure.
Can we go back to this map? Oh, I'm sorry. It's the one before this. Which one is it? Yeah, this one.
The schematic.
The site
Oh,
plan?
the site plan.
The site plan.
Show me again the corner that we're looking at. It's the southeast corner, correct?
This is the northwest corner of I-4 and Kathleen Road. So Kathleen would be right here.
Well, where's the, you're asking the setback in the,
You're right, the setback would be from this point here.
and that's 75 feet currently?
The maximum setback off of Kathleen Road would be 75 feet. So the way the code requirement is, as Mr. Rice stated, it encourages, pedestrian connectivity and walkability. I'll show you in the photographs that this frontage of Kathleen Road is just not conducive to that type of pedestrian type of frontage. So the applicants want to orientate the buildings on the southern portion of their site away from Kathleen Road. You'll have some visibility off of I-4. The off ramp is right here. I'll go back and show that. So this is the site. It's very elevated. So this is coming off the off ramp, and the buildings would be located back here. And if you look at the Kathleen Road frontage, this being at the interchange, it's really not conducive to providing a pedestrian connectivity. The closest residents are in the apartment complex around the corner. This is just not a pedestrian-oriented location.
And I get all that. I'm just, you're looking for more, you're bringing the parking spaces further to the road, is correct? Or is it just the building itself that is this?
The building itself, excuse me.
Okay.
And Mr. Ken, if I may,
Yes, sir.
our request is to increase the distance that our building is allowed to be away from the right-of-way. So this is not trying to shrink and move our building closer to the right. It's to increase that distance.
Right.
Is that where signage is going to go in the future?
I don't believe we've gotten to that detail as of now, but this is primarily dealing with the locations of the building. But
If we approve, would that affect the signage requirements in the future?
no, sir.
They'd still have to come back for signage if that was the case.
Did they have to
If they
get
were-
a
They had to
separate building
request a
permit?
variance
Right.
or anything.
All right, so
If
this
not,
This isn't a blanket variant.
no,
Okay,
no, it has nothing to do with signage at all.
I just want to
No
make sure.
request.
Thank you.
I apologize. Good morning. My name is Philip Scarce. I'm Principal Planner with Community and Economic Development. Again, this 22, I'll just summarize briefly. Mr. Rice did an excellent job of summarizing staff's position and staff's points. It's a 22-acre site. It's located northwest corner of I-4 and Kathleen. This for context, that's the 7-Eleven that was recently built, the Salvation Army. This is the site here. Again, what? Sorry. You have a question?
Well, yes, just also for clarification, where you're requesting an increase to setback, is that ramp that leads into the I-4? That corner here? Versus
No. Yeah, the site plan and the orientation of this map drawing. So that building would be located here, and so that setback is from this point here.
And so that road is to
Yes, that is that
ramp to the I-4?
Yeah, here
Right.
you can see it.
That's what I want.
Yeah, the setback is not from the off ramp. It's from Kathleen.
Yeah.
So this is the nature of Kathleen Road. Again, it's not very pedestrian friendly. Although there is pedestrian amenities there, it's just, this is something that you don't want to have, buildings, fronting here and having walkability along this section. It's just not conducive for it, right next to the interchange. And again, this is looking at the off ramp. So, again, the applicant mentioned that there was, there was a previous conditional use permit on this to allow a hotel of 60 feet in the O3 zoning district. In this context district, you could have a maximum height of 60 feet as well. The C2 is just an anomaly that specifies a maximum height of 36 feet. So that's where they're requesting a variance here. The amount of relief requested is reasonable in proportion to the degree of hardship resulting from the irregular parcel geometry, proposed medical office use and orientation of the property towards the I-4 interchange. Granting a variance would not be contrary to public interest, and the request relief meets the spirit and intent of Land Development Code, and the impacts on adjacent properties would be minimal. Staff recommends the request be considered for approval, provided there are no substantive objections from adjacent property owners, which we have not received any calls or emails from adjacent property owners.
Thank you. Any further questions or clarification from the board?
Can you go into a little more detail on the conditional hotel to 60-foot height? Was that on the existing site that then was abandoned? Is that a nearby site?
Yes, yeah, it was a conditional use permit that still is active today, but that was for specific use for a hotel.
Is that in this area or in a different area?
No, that's on this site.
On this site?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, back around 2009, initially this site was being looked at for a big box retail center. I believe it was Walmart at the time, and they envisioned future out parcel development for a hotel or something else there, so that's why it was considered as part of that. And the code requires big box retail, anything over 40,000 square feet to get a conditional use, so that's how that approval came about through there, and that never came to fruition, so this is what's being proposed.
Any further questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request.
We have a motion to approve. Second. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Mayweather, Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Rashke,
Yes.
Mr. Culbertson,
Yes.
Mr. Kent,
Yes.
Mr. Pedersen,
Yes.
Ms. Konishi, yes. So,
Thank you.
So next up, we have Timothy Crowder. The request is for a 13.1% variance to allow a maximum lot coverage of 48.1% in lieu of the 35% maximum specified by Table 3.4-5 of the Land Development Code to allow for the construction of a covered screened entryway and an attached golf cart garage on the property located at 2027 Spyglass Court. Can you state your name and address?
Yes, my name is Tim Crowder, and the address is 2027 Spyglass Court. We're new residents to Lakeland, and we purchased a home last May and have been trying to move forward on these improvements and so forth on the property. The house, as it sits on the property, the lot itself is only 6,000 square feet. It's 60 wide by 100 deep, and has a retention pond behind us. And on the west side of the home that you're looking at right this moment, that is kind of hemmed in, if you will, by a 5-foot utility easement, and the lot line clearance to the dwelling itself is only about 8.5 feet. According to this particular picture, it would be on the left-hand side, because right in the front left corner on the street itself is a drop inlet, and that drop inlet travels parallel to the home back to the outfall, which goes into the retention pond. It has a 15-foot utility easement in the front yard, and then has a 10-foot utility easement in the back. So the only thing for opportunity, I guess, if you will, for an addition is the front right corner of the house as you look at it from the street, basically to build an addition out to the 15-foot setback slash utility easement. And so that was the desire. The purpose for the variant request is for the cart barn and the screened in front. It used to have a screened in porch in the back, but then it got enclosed and made into a Florida room. So therefore, we're trying to make both a screened in area in the front, over the front entrance, and then a small cart barn that doesn't impose on any of the setbacks and easements. The purpose of it is to allow for, we have 2 vehicles, a car and a truck, and then we have a golf cart to get around in the neighborhood. And weather such as we had last night is the purpose in wishing to build this cart barn so that we can put both vehicles inside the 2-car garage and then have place for the golf cart to then be stored indoors to protect our personal property. So that's the reasoning for the request.
Thank you. Will this have just a screen roof, or will this have a hard roof?
It'll have a hard roof with a slight pitch. It's not flat, but it'll have a slight pitch. I think some type of panels. I've been told by the contractor that has done a lot of those in that particular neighborhood. This is a retirement community. It's Highland Fairways, and it's just north, actually, of the last one that was being proposed there off of Kathleen. We're actually off of Griffith near Kathleen there. And so we moved my father-in-law down here about 5 years ago, saw the neighborhood, really enjoyed it, had the opportunity to retire ourselves, and here we are.
Will this be totally enclosed? And what will it look like? Part of the house?
Yes, ma'am. The cart barn for sure will be enclosed and look like the house. Basically, if you look at the entrance towards the front door, the roof line will just be extended on, it's a bedroom on this right-hand side, you see, with a little small, kind of made out, I forget the name of the...
Bay window.
Bay window, thank you. So that will actually come straight out and just be basically squared off, similar to the actual next door neighbor, as far as coming straight out on either side of that, and then it'll be square across the front, maintaining that 15-foot easement setback.
Okay.
The actual setback, the property starts between the curb and gutter and the sidewalk. The sidewalk's actually on our property. Yep. So the setback is basically parallel and even with the sidewalk that you see. That's pretty much set at 15 feet back. But yes, ma'am, it'll, the roof line will come out with the same pitch roof and so forth on the cart barn.
Okay. And basically, that outside line is even with your walkway.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And so we'll come up the driveway and turn right where the sidewalk is and go in, because that sidewalk, as you can see, sets off the garage corner there.
Right.
And it'll give us enough room to turn right and go into the garage door that will be there for the cart.
Okay.
Do we have any questions from the audience or objections from anyone? Thank you.
Good morning, members of the board. Todd Vargo, Senior Planner with Community and Economic Development. Mr. Crowder did an excellent job explaining this. There's not much I can add, but I will go ahead. So the subject property is in the Highland Fairway subdivision. It's a single-family home that was built in 1992, according to the property appraisers. It's zoned PUD and is within the suburban neighborhood context district. As Mr. Crowder stated, the purpose of this request is to obtain a lot coverage variance to allow for the construction of a covered screen entryway and a golf cart garage, which I think he's referring to as a cart barn, along the front of the house. Both structures will be attached to the house and will meet the front yard setback of 15 feet. Again, the golf cart garage will be off of this bedroom here, and it'll come up to a point where it's 15 feet. 15 feet starts at the edge of this Miami curb and gutter and sidewalk. The sidewalk is actually on his property. And then the covered entryway screen room will be covered as well. So when we talk about lot coverage, we've done a few of these when up in Sandpiper, and we've kind of rolled them into other variances when somebody's coming in for, again, a hard covered screen room or something like we saw already this morning. Lot coverage is a percentage. It's the percentage of the lot that is covered by a building, and it's how we measure intensity for single-family developments, residential lots. Highland Fairways was developed in the county and was later annexed into the city. So when the county set forth or started this subdivision, they didn't have any lot coverage requirements. And when the PUD was adopted, when this was annexed into the city, they did minimum development standards. They didn't put a lot coverage on this PUD. They did setbacks and building heights. So since the PUD is silent on lot coverage, we then use the 35% that is used in residential properties in the suburban neighborhood context district. So most of the properties, again, because this wasn't a thought when this was developed in the county, most of the properties in Highland Fairways do not meet the 35% lot coverage maximum. We haven't seen many come through here just because there hasn't been many additions to the any of the houses in Highland Fairways. But so again, many of the homes in Highland Fairways aren't going to meet the lot coverage maximums. This house, without the additions, also would not meet the lot coverage. Instead of 35%, with the size of this lot and the size of the existing home, it's about 43.4% of the lot is covered by the home. So with these additions, with the additions, the lot coverage raises to 48.1%. So that's why we're asking for a 13.1% variance. It's the difference between the 35 maximum in the suburban neighborhood context district and the 48.1 that will eventually, when they do these additions, that's what this lot will have. Again, it's not that out of place for Highland Fairways because this was developed without the thought of lot coverage.
And because the PUD is silent on it, that's why it was adopted.
Exactly.
Okay.
When this was annexed, and given PUD approval, if they had thought about it, I'm sure they would have, taken a look at the houses and how they were developing, and taken a look at and maybe given it 45 or 50% lot coverage. In the urban neighborhoods, the lot coverage is 55%. It's just in the suburban neighborhoods, typically, the lots are a lot bigger. Again, this was developed in the county, so the lots are a little bit smaller than we would usually have in a suburban neighborhood context, and that just means that we need the lot coverage variance. Again, we don't believe the hardship is suffered by any result of the action taken by the applicant. As we've talked about here today, it really was because it was developed in the county. We believe the amount of relief requested is minimal to allow for the proposed improvements, provided there are no substantive objectives from adjacent property owners. We recommend the request be considered for approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Now we'll add that the Highland Fairways Architectural Committee did review and approve this request, so
Thank you.
when they do have an HOA, we do place a lot of weight on that since they have, the.
Their own standards.
Yes.
Right.
And I didn't mention that, thank you, Matt. I do have that up on the screen here, the architectural approval request as signed off by the Highland Fairways HOA.
Thank you.
Any concerns from neighbors?
We have heard nothing.
Okay.
Ma'am, if you're going to speak, if you could just come up so we can, it's hard to hear up here. Thank you.
All of our neighbors have said it's okay. They've all said that they approve our addition.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Mayweather? Ms. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Rashke?
Yes.
Mr. Culberson?
Yes.
Mr. Kent?
Yes.
Mr. Pedersen?
Yeah.
And Ms. Konishi, yes. So you're approved.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So next up is 1926 Cherokee Trail. This is a request for a 5-foot variance to allow a 5-foot setback from the north property line in lieu of the 10-foot minimum setback for swimming pools specified by Table 4.3-3 of the Land Development Code in order to construct a new in-ground pool on the property located at 1926 Cherokee Trail. Hi there, can you?
Morning, panel members. My name is Jeff Lazenby. I live at 1926 Cherokee Trail. I've owned this property for about 20 years. I have a couple kids that are now teenagers and ready to fold on the we need a pool request. So logically it would go in the backyard, an in-ground pool. Because of the shape of the lot and the placement of the house, there's very limited room back there, which Joshua was pulling up some pictures there. House was built in the mid-30s, and as you can see, it's kind of on a corner, semi-circle shaped lot, which really limits the room I have back there. And I just wanted to give myself some flexibility with a little more room to put the pool in. And I'm only asking for relief on this north property line. On the other side of the property line is just the adjacent property owner's driveway and carport. So that's all I have.
See, there's no objections from anyone in the audience, I'm assuming.
Good morning again. For the record, Joshua Cheney with Community Economic Development. Jeff has done an excellent job of describing his property. I'll just hit the highlights then. It is a home located within the Beacon Hill Historic District. It is a corner lot. The dimensions are approximately 150 foot wide by 125 foot deep. Currently, there is a 2,065 square foot single family detached home. It was built in 1936, as you can see here on the image. As he indicated, the request is to obtain variance relief, which will allow for the construction of a new pool in the rear yard. The hardship that suffered is due to the small rear yard, due to the fact that this is a corner lot. It is set back typically a bit further from the street side or front property lines than what you might find with some of the interior lots. Let me show you a few pictures of the site. This is the side yard.
Is that where the pool's going in the back
And this is the
corner?
rear yard, yes.
Yes.
At the point at the top, where it's like a baseball field, so it's basically going at home plate.
More or less, yes.
I got you.
So this was a rendition given to us by the contractor, Griffin Pools. And then here is the site plan, which gives you a better idea of the need as well as what he's proposing. So you can see that he's maintaining the 10-foot setback here from the eastern property line. There also is an electrical distribution line there, so he's maintaining that. And the relief, if this variance is approved, would reduce this from 10 foot to 5 foot here on the northern property boundary, and that would allow them to construct this pool in the rear yard. With that, I would say that we did not receive any communications from the neighbors or any interested parties, no emails, no phone calls. So the particular hardship suffered is not the result of any action taken by the applicant. We recognize that there is a small area in which to construct a pool, given the setbacks for corner lots and the existing structures on the lot. The requested relief is reasonable and proportionate to the degree of the hardship. The amount of relief requested is the minimal amount necessary to accommodate the proposed pool. Provided there are no substantive objections from the adjoining property owners, staff recommends that the variance be considered for approval. And with that, I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board?
So it's not enclosed. It doesn't have to be enclosed. The existing fence is the safety net, so to say, for safety and security.
Yes, the portability code would require that the pool area be secured with a fence. In this case, as Mr. Cheney mentioned, there is there's a electrical distribution line which runs north-south on the east property line. That's why he's maintaining that 10-foot setback from the water's edge there. That would also apply to anything conducted like a screen cage. So anything could potentially be like a kitchen hazard. So they're not going to have a cage, is my understanding.
Thank you.
That's correct, no enclosure.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a second.
Approve.
Ms. Mayweather, Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Rashke,
Yes.
Mr. Cobbleson.
Yes.
Mr. Kent,
No,
you do not approve.
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Patterson?
Yeah.
Okay, and Ms. Konishi, yes. So I believe we have a majority, so it's approved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any unfinished business? And
What staff shows us during the meetings, I appreciate. Sometimes it's a lot better than what we get in our packets.
Yeah.
So it's very appreciative of all the hard work y'all do. Thank
Yeah,
you.
the extra pictures are helpful.
Yeah, the pictures are perfect. If there's anything on my wish list would be like an overlay of what's existing and what they're proposing, because I'm just a visual person. That's just my preference.
Yeah, some cases it helps to have a complete site plan with the house. Here, you only had a partial site plan. It was kind of hard to tell maybe where it was located. So we'll work towards that in the future.
Only
I
if
have
it's
a
feasible,
question
sir.
that came up. I have a question that I actually unfortunately thought of with the Lakeland Regional, just something simple. Where was the entrance to that medical center?
The entrance looked like it was going to be either off of Kathleen, or there's a road that is right next to, north of the property, right next to, there's a convenience store,
There's a
gas
service
station.
station.
Yeah.
And because I've actually went to the service station several times, and that service station has an entrance, but you have to make a U-turn to get to the service station. So I didn't know if it's gonna, that's part of the entrance, and then you'll end up in the back of the medical building from that service
Yeah,
station.
it looks like you would be, like, the building is going to be closer to I-4, and then it looks like there's going to be a long drive that goes from the street up to the building through the parking lot.
Yes, there's a median out there. So the drive would be the to the north of 7-Eleven. That would be the,
Oh, so it would actually go past the 7-Eleven.
yeah, I mean, there's a median in Kathleen Road, so in order to turn into the side
Right.
and you're going northbound, that would be your only entrance. The other exit would be just a right in, right out only. South of 7-Eleven.
It's two ways.
I just think it's interesting for a medical office there.
So ultimately, I mean, the market determines what gets developed, and retail, as we all know, has not been doing well for a long time. And of course, COVID came along and didn't help, so healthcare seems to be growing now.
Yeah, brick and mortar for any retail is definitely down. Thank you, Amazon. Any other comments or new business or anything? All right, we're adjourned.
Thank you.